Because that was reviewing.
You have more space then. Everybody has to be with you. No, well, it's a good thing.
I don't think so, really. Yeah,
Okay.
He was a her. Go back as far as contact.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, rather, everyone. If you want to go ahead and find your seat, we're going to get started. Welcome to Navigating Certified Organic and Sustaining Success. Deputy Secretary Cheryl Cook may be here soon to provide some opening remarks, so we will just pause the program when she arrives to welcome all of you here. My name's Kristen Markley. I'm the PA Preferred Organic Manager for the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. This photo represents my previous life, farming my family's farm in western Snyder County, 130-acre farm, where I had a diversified vegetable operation and a children's educational program. I also secured a conservation reserve program and had beautiful buffers established all around the farm, all around our streams, and also secured a conservation easement so that the it will continue to be a farm forever. All right, I just want to give you a little bit of background before we dive in. So PA Preferred Organic is a Pennsylvania Farm Bill initiative to grow opportunities for Pennsylvania farmers and keep Pennsylvania a national leader in organic production. Pennsylvania is the only state with a farm bill, so we have a lot to be proud of. And Pennsylvania is doing very well in terms of organic agriculture. We have a lot of support from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and the governor. And Pennsylvania, from the last census, Pennsylvania farms ranked third in the nation in organic sales. California was number 1 and Washington State number 2. Pennsylvania is among the top organic producing states. We're number 1 in organic livestock and poultry. This is because of poultry. They just put that category all together. And number 1 in organic mushrooms. So I want to just give you a little background regarding the PA Preferred Organic Program projects. We have a lot going on and want to make sure that everyone has access to these resources and can take full advantage of them. One thing we offer is we administer the Organic Certification Cost Share Program. So this is really important for producers to know about to help with certification costs. We have the Organic Consulting Program. We work with Rodell Institute and Team Ag, and there's members of both of those organizations here today to talk with you about all the services that can be provided for both producers and processors transitioning to organic. It's quite extensive, and they can start with working with folks wherever they are at and provide how much or how little support that they need on a wide range of topics. A few other things. We recently conducted an economic analysis of the impact of organic agriculture in Pennsylvania. In fact, our last 2 farm show programs were about the economic analysis. And it is posted on our website, has a lot of great information about Pennsylvania and the impact, very positive impact on the state in terms of organic agriculture. We also have organic study circles. We partner with Penn State Extension on that, and those groups meet in different parts of the state with, basically each group is a separate type of product that farmers are working with. So we have a dairy organic study circle, we have a vegetable, we have a grain. So really great opportunities for producers to plug into that. There's not a lot of opportunities for organic farmers to have peer-to-peer networking opportunities. These organic study circles are really great in that regard. So if you have questions, let me know and I can put you in contact with the right people. We also do have a Pennsylvania Organic Agriculture Work Group, and this is basically made up of the partners that we actively work with in just, keeping each other up to speed as to what's going on in Pennsylvania and providing opportunities to collaborate and support each other. This has been a really great group in terms of increasing communication amongst service providers around the state. Our newly launched Organic Center of Excellence is Governor Shapiro initiative, and we have a group of advisory committee members. In fact, many of them are here today. If you're on the OCE, as we abbreviate it, if you're on the advisory committee, if you could please raise your hands so folks can talk with you about their ideas for Pennsylvania organic agriculture and what you would like to see the Organic Center working on. I just wanted to share the OCE is going through a strategic planning process, and we've drafted a mission statement and a vision statement. These are still in draft form, but I think they're really excellent statements regarding what the Organic Center of Excellence is about. So I will just read these since it's a lot of words up there. All right, so the draft mission statement is the Pennsylvania Organic Center of Excellence will create greater positive social engagement from the farmer to the consumer in the Commonwealth's organic agriculture supply chain to drive market expansion. For new and existing organic operations, the center will act as a gateway to research, services, resources, and technical assistance. The center will pave the way for transition and access to market opportunities while upholding the highest standards of integrity within the USDA National Organic Program. And the draft mission statement, we envision a future where Pennsylvania's thriving organic agriculture industry leads the nation with an informed consumer base, diverse and responsive supply chains, viable infrastructure, and profitable organic farms. Organic agriculture is an inclusive and foundational industry where Pennsylvania's food and ecosystems, urban and rural communities, and economy are all healthy, enhanced, and regenerative. And we do have the minutes posted on the PA Preferred Organic website if you want to take a look at those to see what is discussed at those meetings. The meetings are also open to the public and posted on on the PDA meeting notices page. All right, I wanted to give you a feel for who is in the audience today. We'll be breaking down into smaller groups after the panel. And so take a look at who's here. And I see Deputy Secretary Cheryl has arrived, so I'm going to be turning it over to her in a few minutes. Is there anyone who's not represented on this slide? Can you raise your hand? Kagan? Rodell's not on there? Well, thank you for catching that. Rodell Institute is here. All right, so today's agenda, after Cheryl offers her opening remarks, we have an esteemed panel of organic farmers here. I will be asking them questions, and then we will open into question and answer from the audience. That's going to take us until 3 o'clock, and then we're going to break down into smaller groups. You can see the topics and the facilitators. We're going to divide into different parts of the room. And this is really where we want you to all have an opportunity to network and exchange ideas and learn from each other. We, based on the evaluation that we received on this program last year, the two things that people said they wanted more of was more time with the farmers and more time networking. So that's why we have a 3-hour program packed full of great information and great people. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Okay, and that is all from me. Cheryl, are you able to come up and offer some opening remarks? This is Deputy Secretary Cheryl Cook.
Well, good afternoon. Sorry to be a little late, moving a little slower this side of the week than I was earlier in the week. Pleased that everybody's here. We are proud of the work done so far toward advancing organic agriculture in Pennsylvania and the Commonwealth itself investing in continuing that progress. I think we are always looking for new ideas. What's next? What else can we do? How can we better support? Whether it's through the transition process or in the marketing after you're already certified, what are the things that could add value where just a little more oomph from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and specifically the Department of Agriculture could be helpful. So I appreciate your time, your wisdom. I see a lot of experience sitting around this room. Scott, how you doing? I've been eating chicken tenders all week. Just so you know. Doing my part. Anyway, thank you very much for being here on behalf of Secretary Redding. This is an important and one of the fastest growing segments of agriculture in Pennsylvania. So, an area like urban agriculture and other parts of ag that we've celebrated this week, important and getting more so by the day. So. Thank you, and I guess I'll give it back to you, or do you want to turn it right over to the panel? Kristen?
I'll take it from here.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you,
All
Cheryl.
right, thanks.
All right. All right, well, here I am sitting with this amazing group of panelists. I want to thank all of them for contributing their time and their insight. They have really important stories and a lot of great information to offer all of us. And we met ahead of time and just talked a little bit about what topics they may want to cover, and we came up with a great list of questions that I'm going to start out with. So what I'm going to ask of each panelist first is to tell us a little bit about your story and what brought you to use organic production or processing practices. And if someone is looking to transition, do you have any first steps that you would recommend or key strategies, resources, or services to achieve certification? So, Terra, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Is this on? Hear me? Okay. My name's Terra Brownback. I'm from Spiral Path Farm. My husband and I purchased some farmland. We're first-generation farmers in 1978 with the goal back then to save the world and the environment by farming organically, for real. That's what we wanted to do. Took us the first 15 years of trying to farm and grow a family, grow field crops, row crops, until we transitioned in the 90s to all produce, which was a goal of ours. At the time, let me see, we sought out OCIA, which is Organic Certification International Association, I think. They were based in Ohio. This would have been about the early to mid 1990s. they were okay to work with. The markets were starting, like, we were getting requests from wholesalers, like Whole Foods, and we needed a certification. And while OCIA could do that, they were so international that we felt we needed, and it was hard to get an appointment to get certified. So sitting around our living room one day, this is kind of the history of PCO anyway. There was no certification like PCO then. The state of Maryland, we had farm friends in Maryland, and the state of Maryland was doing certifications. So we thought, well, maybe the state of Pennsylvania could do the certifications. Met with the PDA at that time, but under that administration, there wasn't the funds or the interest. And so out of frustration, a group of my husband, myself, another farmer, Christine, and Tom Bedard of Lady Moon Farms, and Leslie Zook of Common Ground Farm, we decided, well, we just have to take matters into our own hands. We have to create something. We have to be able to certify, and this is how it started. PCO, we went through with the help of Leslie Zook, who also is an attorney. We were able to get some legal, I don't know all the terminologies. But anyway, PCO was born. It was first done kind of as peer review. This is even before the NOP and any kind of standards that I know Leslie can, or my husband Mike is also in the room. If I've said anything incorrect, let me know. Okay. So what I would recommend, so we had a 190-acre farm at the time. We started, so if you want, and we had to transition. We had a mortgage, we had a family. We were raising a farrow to finish operation at the time. And so we took it one step at a time. We had our half-acre garden certified first because we still needed income to keep us going and paying the bills. And so advice I'd have for someone who wants to transition, now, of course, this was in the mid-90s, so this is a while ago. There were not services, resources at that time, such as that there is now, which is wonderful. And it makes me really happy to see all ages here in this room. It's wonderful. And there's interest. I know there's a lot of interest even beyond this room. So that just gives me a good sense of positive for the future of agriculture. Okay. Thank you, Terra. All right.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Hanna Mosca. I am the Director of Urban Agriculture and Programming for a nonprofit organization called Grow Pittsburgh. We're located in the city of Pittsburgh and broadly in Allegheny County. And I've been with the organization for 7 years, and for the past 7 years have managed small, very small. I know when some of you say small, you mean much more than a quarter acre. When I say small, I mean a quarter acre, a city lot. And our largest farm, our big farm, is 1 acre. So I know that our scale maybe can relate to somebody in the room, but I know we're a minority here for sure. So I managed a quarter acre farm. We had chickens and bees. And most recently, our newest production site is a greenhouse. It was a nursery for nearly 20 years. And they had been previously certified organic, but we built new structures on site, 2 greenhouses. And in 2024, started to transition to organic because our greenhouse had been under our management. Last year was our 3rd season, so we had records for everything that we had done for the previous 3 years. So we were able to apply and get certified in the same year because we were doing all organic practices. As an organization, our mission is to promote the benefits that gardens bring to our communities, and I'm on the production team. All of the practices that we use are organic, and so everything that we were doing, it was part of the reason as an organization that we wanted to become certified organic for our greenhouse, we sell seedlings and an annual seedling sale. We have lots of different vegetables, 33 different kinds of tomatoes, many different sweet and hot peppers, veggies, flowers, herbs, those kinds of things. And so certifying that was the first step. As an organization, all of the education that we do and all the production that we do is following organic standards, but we wanted to, I don't know if we wanted to prove that necessarily, but part of it was, this is what we're saying we're doing, but without that certification, it is possibly just lip service. So we were really proud that none of our production had to change, none of the materials that we were using had to change, but putting that all down on paper as a small nonprofit, the language around acreage, we're talking about square feet. We don't have acres, we have square feet, we have small production spaces. And so that was one of the biggest challenges for us, was sort of translating some of that language around farming to our scale. And we're talking about bed numbers and square footage versus really large acreage. And I think that was one of the challenges that we saw. And, thinking about your map, especially for urban spaces, we broke it down into sort of like much more minuscule, spaces. And so that was a little bit challenging, where some people might have whole production happening on acres. We were really bed by bed. We're doing different production because we're growing for farm stands and things like that. But we, as an organization, got a top grant, the Transition to Organic Partnership. So that's something, if anyone's looking to transition, that's definitely a resource that was super helpful to us as an organization. It meant we could keep on one of our seasonal staff. She was able to work through the winter, help us get our application submitted, create the maps, that kind of thing. Another resource that we have as an organization that is really useful is an app called App Sheet. And it's something that you can build out in Excel, and that's how we keep track of all of our organic materials, all of our harvest weights, and as an organization across all of our sites, we can keep all of those records in one spot. And so that streamlined sort of the, some of it we have on paper, but App Sheet is definitely a resource I would recommend.
Good afternoon. My name is David Martin. My wife and I are dairy farmers in Juniata County. We're organic, grass-fed dairy. We have 250 continuous acres, including our farm, and then we also rent the adjoining farm to us for the past 27 years. We have been dairy farming for 27 years. The first 12 were conventional dairy farming. We transitioned and have been certified now, including the transition for 15 years. As far as advice that I would give, and some first steps would be to find a mentor, and that sounds like a scary word, but somebody that you look up to, or somebody that is certified, because that can be a wealth of information. For my wife and I, as we transitioned, we didn't ask enough questions, and it was kind of a scary process, and we were scared to ask questions. And another piece of advice I would have is to find a certifier and lean into them. I had the wrong picture of what the certifier was as far as being a help or have the information. I was kind of scared to call them, thinking I was going to be doing something wrong and that I would have to start over or something. But I would give advice to find somebody that has walked that path and also use the resources that are available through the transition.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dave Marshall with Marshall Farms LLC out of Halifax. 2011, I decided to leave partially the lumber business, which I'd worked in all my life, to pursue farming interest. And the first step that I did in becoming a farmer was to do a business plan. And I think before you transition into organic or do any major changes in your operation, that's the very first thing you need to do, is to come up with a plan on how you're going to survive. And I did that when I bought my first farm in 2011 to figure out how I'm going to pay the mortgage. And farming organic seemed to be the thing to do, and it's something that I love to do. I like farming. There's nothing that thrills me more than to get in a big tractor with a plow and plow. But today, me and my son farm about 450 acres that's certified organic. There's a few more acres that we're farming that's being transitioned. We take our transitional crops and normally put it into some dairy beef that we raise, that we sell to the freezers. That is not certified organic, but it is. Some of the calves are organic when we get them, some of them aren't. Some of the feed that they get is organic, and the rest of it is transitional or non-GMO. There's no hormones or anything like that given to them. But we're farming probably a little over 200 acres of corn and a little over 100 acres of beans, which my friend Scott over here with Bell and Evans tends to receive a lot of. And matter of fact, as late as yesterday, he got a load of beans off of me. But we bought the second farm in 2021, so 10 years apart. We're doing something that's a little unusual for the state of Pennsylvania. Between me and my son, all our income to pay these bills comes from the farm, and which is very difficult to do. I guess I would be considered a first-generation farmer. I had a lot of other generations that farmed, but that was 3 generations ago. And they were successful. But if I was going to look and give somebody advice to go into organic farming, the very first thing is to come up with a business plan. The next thing is to find a farmer that's in a wheelchair and take advice from them, because they were farming organic before it was cool. And I actually learned a lot. We have a plow day at our place every year. There's a man that's coming this year to the plow day. He's been there the last 2 years. He's turning 90 in a couple days. He's coming, and that man has taught me a lot. And, you know, he grew up farming, and it was essentially organic at that time because we didn't have the chemicals that he used, and that is a wealth of information. Gray hair is good sometimes. So I guess that's all I have for an introduction.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Terra, did you have more that you wanted to share about the history of the organic movement in Pennsylvania from your experience?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. I tried, I mean, I could go on and on.
All
I
right.
don't think there's any major.
Thank you. Yeah, you included that in your introduction
Yes, I
really
did.
well. Thank you. And yeah, if you do have questions, just jot them down, and we'll have time for questions from the audience for the panel once we get through a few more questions with them. All right, next up, what were the challenges you faced during the transition period? Were there any mitigation tactics that you used to address the financial gap in transition? You want to start, Terra?
Well, at the time, I think I did mention we were doing a farrow to finish operation with sows. We had 100 sows. And so over a period of, I'd say, 2 to 3 years, we phased it out. So that was one of our thing. And as far as our fields and our field crops, we just would expand by acreage, like put a field in a certain vegetable crop. And we also tore down an old greenhouse up in, I forget what county, and then brought it back and put it up so we could grow our own transplants. We did a lot of everything on our own. We were starting to have people ask us to do a CSA, which is now it's, everybody kind of knows what that was. Back then, we were like, what is that? And people, listen to what consumers want. Listen to that, because people knew that we were organically minded and they wanted us to do this. And we're like, what? What is that? And then after the second set of people that asked us to do it, then we're like, well, yeah, we're being stupid if we're not doing what people want. So that would be one thing we started, and we were selling to restaurants, and there was a co-op in Huntington County, Tuscarora Organic Growers at the time. We started selling with them. They were selling produce in the Washington DC area. So we were slowly but surely looking at other markets, and then also needing to find labor beyond Mike and I and our children, and that was new to our farm. We had been there since 78, and this is 90, mid-90s, so it was slowly but surely. Okay, I'm trying to think, yeah. To address the financial gap, we were still having income from selling fat hogs, and so and we did without a lot. That kind of thing. All right, that's it.
Excellent.
Okay.
I made a couple of notes of challenges that we had. I think one of the things that we, as an organization, like I said, this was one of our farms that we transitioned, but even within that, our greenhouse has gardens that had been, organically grown for 20 years, and then we also had new land that we had acquired on the corner lot. And so as part of our application, we knew what had been happening for the last, under Grow Pittsburgh's leadership, for the last 5 years. So we had records of what had been done on part of the land, but not on the corner lot. So we just transitioned part of the greenhouse and farm operation to organic. So the corner lot, as part of our site, is still not certified organic. It will likely be something that we do transition. Currently, we're growing cut flowers on it, so it was less important for us to transition it to organic, where it was more priority for the edible food crops and the things we were growing for a weekly farm stand. So that was part of it, was just not wanting to sort of hold back our application by having some of it as organic and some of it as not, but so we just transitioned. And that's part of our map and part of our organic plan, and so that was something we were trying to figure out how we could transition that as well, and just decided that that was not a priority for our application for 2024. Like I said, we may transition it in the future, but if we continue to grow cut flowers on it, the resources for finding organic for flower plugs and all of those things is much more challenging than for herb plugs and berries and vegetable seeds. So that was one thing. And the other thing that we found challenging, if anyone is doing an application collaboratively and not just one person working on the application, the PDF files to fill out the applications are so clunky. We had to do it through 2 different certifiers because we had a conflict of interest with PCO. But so we got certified through OFA, through Ohio, and both of those, the applications, you have to save it. It's not, in the age of working in Google Docs, when everything and everybody can be editing and keeping that up to date, it was just a really challenging thing. We had to constantly be like saving and sending and saving and sending. And when you have multiple people trying to work on it in a nonprofit, that is our reality. So.
Some of the challenges, I think I already touched on one again, but just to ask questions, I had a lot of unanswered questions, and it would have been my fault for not asking. As far as when I was conventional, I'd actually fell in love with the grazing portion with our dairy. So I was grazing with my dairy cows for several years before I ever even thought about transitioning to organic. And people kept spurring me and asking questions, why aren't you organic? And I'm like, I don't want to be organic. I just want to graze my cows. And then I slowly came around to the idea, and I have no regrets. Because with our dairy, some of the things that helped us through that transition period was I felt like I had already taken some production loss earlier in my conventional days when I went strong into grazing. So it didn't feel like a huge hit financially because I was already basically, a lot of my production was organically, I just wasn't certified. I shipped my milk to an organic co-op, and they had a transition pay or an incentive over a period of time, and I'm not sure exactly how many months it was or if it was almost a year, but that helped. They weren't even receiving our milk, but because we were going to be going with them, there was an incentive there, and that was a financial help. The last thing I'm going to touch on is Pennsylvania had a path to organic, and I'm not sure if that's even, I'm not sure if that's a program anymore, but my wife and I were the first participants in that, and this would have been back in either '09 or 2010. And there was a group of 18 farmers that were transitioning to organic, and it was a grant that helped pay some of our expenses to transition over. It could be up to a 4-year period, but we did it in 3. And that was a big help because it was grant money that we could apply towards things like this. And as part of that PATH program, it was also set up a team of mentors around us. And it was totally customized to what you needed. If you wanted a banker on there, if you wanted another organic farmer, and then part of the grant money that we received some, but you would also could get money to pay these mentors to gather either monthly or however often you thought was necessary. And you could even have your certifier if they would agree to be in that round table. So it was a help for us. It was actually what really gave us the boot in the butt, so to speak, to actually become certified when we got accepted into the path to organic.
Okay, I think I can sum up the biggest challenges in one word. It's called a mortgage. And that was the biggest challenge that we had faced. And when I bought the first farm in 2011, I was heavily involved in the lumber industry. And we did our own logging, had a sawmill, dry kiln, and went as far as making finished doors and hardwood flooring. And I kept that going for a number of years after we had bought the farm. And we started out with, I think, 30 acres that we could initially certify. And the rest of it, we slowly transitioned as fast as we could, but it takes 3 years to transition the ground, and the lumber business helped to keep us afloat to pay the mortgage. And another thing that we did as far as tactics, obviously, like I mentioned before, we made a business plan, but I did not buy new equipment. For a lot of years, my newest tractor was a 1970 Minneapolis Moline, which I now own 10 of them. And my newest tractor that I own today is a 1988 white, and which is far from new. Through the business plan, we delegated what money had to go to what piece of equipment to be most effective. And the number one thing that we have to do is we have to have a planter that plants the seed properly. Number two thing you have to have something to harvest it, that you take it all out of the field, not half of it. And those are the things that we concentrated on. And so far, it's been treating us fairly well over the years. And I did not get any grants or anything like that. I don't know if there was any available to me for what I was doing at that time. And then probably after the financial part, the biggest challenge was the paperwork for being certified. And up until, well, I still argue with my certifier on the paperwork. We do it differently than what they're used to seeing because it works for us. And I do my paperwork on an Excel spreadsheet because of the size that we are. It makes it easier to manage for our accounting and different programs that we're in the state and different reporting. Just a couple years ago, we still had to convert it to a handwritten thing to submit it for certifier, which is kind of absurd now. That is slowly changing. But, that would have been the second issue that we had to deal with. The paperwork is hard, and till you get used to what you have to do. But, I think to address the financial gap, that was, I kept my other business going. And I had too many trees fall on me. It was inevitable that I was not going to be able to do that the rest of my life. So I kept it going long enough that we could transition into this, and my son has joined me in it, and it's working good. It looks like it's going to go at least another generation anyways.
Thank you all. Just wanted to double check, can the folks in the back of the room hear all the panelists okay? Okay, great, great. I know we have some, another program going on nearby, so want to make sure everyone can hear. All right, next question. How has your operation been impacted by strengthening organic enforcement, including additional fraud prevention plan requirements? Have you made any changes in your business plan or other changes to support your farm through the SOE transition? And let's start with Hanna, and then have Dave share from there.
Great. Yeah. So since we just applied in 2024, this was already part of the, this was already implemented into the organic, standards for last year. So we, as a small nonprofit, so much of the organic application is about fraud prevention. And, I feel like we were like a little naive. We're like, what do we even, how would we have fraud? Like, we're just selling organic plants. Like, we don't know. And so it was like, sort of working backwards and really thinking through all of the pieces of the system that we're mostly selling our seedlings on site at our greenhouse, but we do also distribute to our local food co-op and to a couple of our other farm stands and things. So for us, it was just built into our application, which I'm really thankful for. I feel like that really did make us have to think holistically about all of those systems, thinking about tracking the seeds. And something that we did have to change for our operation was not sort of how we were growing, but how we were labeling and keeping records of those things. That was not something we had to do historically because, like I said, it was just like our like ragtag team of people getting, growing some seedlings and then selling them. Now we really do have to show where we're selling them all to, and through our certifier coming and doing the inspection. At one point we were like counting up every basil plant on site, and it was kind of amazing looking back at all those records then and saying like, well, you said you were going to grow this many. This is how many were on site. How many have you sold so far? And, how many seeds did you purchase? So tracking all of that, that was what we did, was these basil plants. Our numbers were off by, a couple hundred, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of basil plants. And so it was all fine. But that did implement new systems for transplanting and uppotting records. Those were not things that we had historically done and will now be implementing moving forward.
For us, yeah, I think the SOE, the new standards, really haven't changed our actual farming practices, but it is, as Hanna already said, a change in how we do our paperwork, and it did add some challenges to that. And renewing with our certifier, that kind of felt like we were starting over from scratch, and we were starting brand new again, which felt a little deflating to me. But as far as our actual farming practices, we felt like we were in compliance already, but it's just relearning new ways to adjust, to track everything that's more efficient, and that will be accepted by our certifier.
I kind of agree with David here. In my operation as a grain farmer, I really didn't have to change anything other than put a label on my grain bins that said organic, which that's all it was in them to begin with, ever since they were built new. But I believe that the imports of grains coming into this country is where we're going to see a significant difference. And I believe that that's going to be a positive financial difference to the people in America that are raising organic products the right way. And I think it's going to eliminate the possibility of cheating coming through other countries. One thing that I am a part of that I did not mention before, I am the Dauphin County Farm Bureau president, which Farm Bureau is a large lobby group for the farmers. This year I did write a policy that would address this, to have residue testing done to imported grains at the point of interest, where USDA and customs would be equally involved in it, and other country would have to pay the fee for the testing so that they can prove that their grains meet our standards. And I think as things like that take place, it's going to be positive for the American organic farmer. And it's a little too early to judge as to what kind of effect these new rules are going to have, because I believe there's a new group of them that just went into effect in March, I think it was. And it's just too soon to tell.
Thank you. All right, another question here. Is there an economic advantage for being certified organic? Please detail your thoughts and recommendations on how to be financially successful as a certified organic farmer. Who would like to start?
I don't know that I want to start this one. I do, well, I'll start. I'll get it started. I'll get it started just so to get it started. There is an economic advantage for organic produce. I've seen it over the past few decades, narrow down more, but we were being paid more per case of produce. So I didn't say that our farm sells organic produce three ways. We go to farmers markets. We have a large CSA, but we also are wholesale growers also. We have over the past sold to many different grocery chains. Right now, we're selling to Wegmans Organic, not Wegmans Organic, excuse me, Wegmans grocery chain. And we do have that advantage. We are getting paid more per case than if we would ship our produce to, say, the Shippensburg produce auction or something like that. Let me see what else you wanted us to take a look at. How to be successfully as an organic farmer. Well, I do think that keeping really good records on your fields, which you need to do for certified organic, helps us look at, how the inputs for that crop, particular vegetable crop, for instance, and just keeping records and looking at your records at the end of a season and knowing different fields and what produce they grew can help you strategize and get a better bottom line, I guess is what I want to say. Since you have to keep such good records with so many different fields, use your records, look at them, make good choices. Okay.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely an economic advantage. We sell some of our seedlings through the East End Food Co-op in Pittsburgh, and when they have side-by-side, conventional and organic, certainly the organic you can get a higher price point for that. We sell wholesale to the co-op, but for as a nonprofit organization, something that we're always trying to balance is that we're serving people in communities who may not have access to, as much disposable income and those kinds of things. So something that, even though we are certified organic and selling our produce at our weekly farm stands, we are subsidizing that cost to keep it affordable for the people in our communities. So as an organization, we could be selling it at a much higher price point, but as a sort of part of our mission work, it's much more about being transparent and doing education than it is a financial incentive for us as an organization.
My opinion would be that there is an economic advantage, and I'm speaking for dairy. There can be a rather large difference between the organic dairy versus conventional. So there is an advantage. With that said, you can't just say so much for organic milk versus conventional, because there's different production scales, and you often have less production with organic. Because there is an advantage, I'd also like to bring up that that's not a magic fix for poor management, and I think Dave already brought this up strongly in the beginning, is with having a business plan. A poor manager not organic is probably going to be a poor manager organic as well. So you can't see the organic incentives or the production increases or the price increases and think that's going to fix your problem if there is a problem. And I don't mean to deter anybody. I just say that as a challenge that a good manager conventionally is probably going to be a pretty good manager organically. And so you'd want to be realistic and obviously can't just focus on the economic increase and think that's going to be the way to go. There's more to it than that.
For me, there was definitely an economic advantage, especially when I started. The first year I sold corn was for $16 a bushel. And we're not in those days today. Now it's $9. And it's probably an all-time low right now. And which makes it a little bit harder, but it's still an advantage over a conventional farmer. You're going to spend more time in the field, so you're going to farm less acres, which can be an advantage. You don't have to rent as much acres or own as many acres, and to end up, surviving financially at the end of the day. My recommendation is it goes back to the financial. You got to watch the money, and I'm fortunate enough that I have a daughter that I helped her plan what she wanted to do in the future, and she liked numbers, and she became an accountant. And so guess who does my bookwork? And that really means a lot in, like, I have 2 tractors with GPSs in, and I don't necessarily need them to tell me how to run the steering wheel. But it's really nice when I pull into a field and I type into the GPS what I'm putting in the field, and it records the date. I have those records. And just the other day with my daughter, we went through what it costs us to put out an acre of corn with the rent that we're paying to know if we're able to pay more rent, or if Scott has to pay more for corn off of me, which that would be appreciated, Scott. And but to find out what's going to balance the books. Just like Terra said, when you keep your records, we have to keep them for our certifier to know what's going on in fields or your gardens. But we also have to know are we just working to spin our wheels, or are we actually making a living? And unfortunately, our world revolves around money, so we have to keep our eye on that ball all the time if we want to be sustainable. And so, yes, there's an economic advantage, and it can be a rather good one if you can manage your business. And I make the joke that a successful farmer has the ability to take a penny and make 100 feet of copper wire out of it. And truly, you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to improvise. Example was yesterday I went to load a load of grain, and the unloading auger quit. Well, I have a time limit that I have to get there. I can't get an electrician out to fix the unloading auger. The switch went out. So we improvised and bypassed the switch and loaded our load of grain, and now things are getting fixed. And you have to have that ability to do that to be successful. So that's all that I have.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing your amazing stories. Very inspiring, very informative. We are going to open it up to the audience now, and I do want to let everyone know that this program is being recorded. So just keep that in mind in terms of, whether or not you want to ask a question. And the program will be posted on the PA Preferred Organic website, so you or others can watch it. When we break down into the small groups, that portion will not be recorded, but this beginning part is. Let me grab the microphone. Hello? Okay. One other thing I'm going to pass around, I want to make sure everyone gets an evaluation form. This was really important last year. I used the information on the evaluation form to design this year's program. So if you haven't gotten one, please grab one. I'll pass them around. And when you're finished with it, just leave it here up on the registration table before you leave. Oh, thank you, Peggy. Yeah, we're actually down 2 PDA staff. The farm show's a pretty intense time, so I lost a couple people who were going to help me today, so I appreciate everyone's help. All right, let's open it up for questions or comments, please. Okay. Since we're recording it, we want to get everyone's question on the recording.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the issue of integrity, and I just also have been encountering in my work here in Pennsylvania and elsewhere, there's also just the consumer confusion, and I wonder if there's a way there's obviously a great concern about deliberate, intentional cheating and fraud within the supply chain and imports, et cetera. But then what about the whole issue of, at the consumer level, local preference over an organic certification, or all of that? Can anybody address that? Have you found that that affects your ability to make, I mean, obviously if you're directly marketing, maybe not, but how does that fit into your rubric of the community you live in or sell in?
I'll be the first to address that, I guess. Last night I was looking on Facebook, saw an ad for somebody advertising organic corn. I happen to know that they do not have an organic certificate. They are being turned in because it's fraudulent what they're doing. Like when I advertise something that is organic on a Facebook or internet or anywhere, for a short time we raised a little bit of produce and we advertised it as organic. I had a copy of my certificate that sat there, and copies of it. If anybody that bought produce from me wanted to prove that it was organic, there went my certificate with it, if they so chose to have it. Sometimes I'll sell hay at a hay auction that is organic hay, and it's advertised that way. On the bale, on one of the bales of hay is a certificate. So as a consumer standpoint, if you go and you want to buy something that's organic, you should have the right, and you do have the right, to ask for the certificate and to be proven that it's organic. And as a consumer, like, I sell meat that's beef that's not organic, nor do I pretend that it's organic. And I have a lot of people that come to my farm to buy it, that they have the perception that it's organic because I'm an organic grain farmer. It's not organic. It does not meet the credentials for organic, even though it's very, very close. Then it's the consumer's call to say, okay, I trust this farmer to say it's good enough for my needs, but I cannot sell it as organic. And so, I mean, the consumer has to be a little wary and know what they're buying. And they can buy some stuff that's non-organic that is just as good. I mean, my beef, I fed it to Kristen already, and she's still here. And it works. It's just that for me to have beef certified organic, I'd have to go to an organic butcher shop. And in this area, I don't know where there is one. And that's my first dilemma. And there's a couple other dilemmas that I have. So, I would say just do the research on the people that you're buying from. But if you want to buy truly organic, you have the right to ask for that certificate to prove it, and do that.
I just wanted to let everyone know, consumer or otherwise, you can look up certificates. The public can look it up in the Organic Integrity Database on the USDA website. So if you're not comfortable asking for a certificate, you can just get online and view their certificate in live time. So that's a really good way to check.
other questions or comments?
We get off good. So far, so good.
You have one as well? Yeah. Okay, all right.
Have you guys noticed any consumer trends in the demand for organic, like different types of consumers or places you would find consumers that are more interested in organic than others?
I don't do any direct-to-consumer selling because I have a marketing co-op that sells my milk. My personal belief is that there's a core consumer that's well-informed and is always going to buy organic. But then there's a lot of confusion, as we just discussed, between maybe they see something natural and in their mind that's the same thing or very, very close, and they just don't understand that they have no idea what natural means or what that is. So that's just my opinion, that you have a core customers that are always going to be organic, but then there's some confusion, and I don't know what the numbers are or percentages, but there are consumers that have misconceptions or just simply aren't informed enough themselves.
We run farm stands that are right on our farms themselves, so we don't go to farmers markets, but I think that certainly it's a conversation we have with our customers all the time. We get asked about how they can see the farm when they come and buy stuff, so I think that helps. People can ask questions. We're happy to talk about our growing practices. With only one of our sites as certified organic, I think now it's really an interesting part of the conversation is like, yes, we grow all organically, but one site is certified, and through that we know all of the materials we're using on site, any of those kinds of things. But I think it means something to have a certification. And so all of our seedlings that we planted, all of them, those are now certified organic. They're being grown in a greenhouse. And so we can really talk about that entire process. But it takes a lot to educate people because on our farms, even people will come and say like, oh, do you spray? And we say, well, yeah, we spray a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that we aren't certified organic. Or is it all, do you use any chemicals? Obviously, in farming, there's so many chemicals that we use that are natural, that are naturally occurring. But that education with the consumer, we do a lot of, and both on our certified organic and not certified, but organically grown. I think there's always going to be a lot of education to happen. There's so much greenwashing that happens, and people saying things that they're organic when they aren't. And I think that for ours, we have diverse veg farms, and so we grow lots of different things at our farms, but we don't find that there's anything in particular necessarily. Seedlings that's the only thing that we've transitioned to certified so far.
Address a little bit of that as well. Demographically, I'd say the medical field comes to me in droves. I actually had a medical procedure done this week, and I mentioned that I was a organic farmer. I had 5 nurses around my bed almost instantly. With the beef that I sell, I get a lot of people from the medical field. As far as the education part of it and where this is going, I actually think the administration that's taken office now with the position that they want to appoint Kennedy to and his feelings on nutrition and healthy foods might really stimulate the organic world. I really feel good for that, and I have a good feeling about that. So, that's my thoughts. But demographically, I'd say the medical people.
Can I add on to that?
Absolutely, yep, and then we'll get to you. Okay, thanks, Chris.
So I think that there have been a lot of studies in the organic industry and demographically, and millennials are really dialing into organic and being pulled into the organic space. I think a lot of the benefits of organic and that Dave's talked about, the animal welfare, the lack of pesticides, fair wages for farmers really align with a lot of millennial values. And it's about teaching and connecting those values that organic already does, and letting people know that you have one seal that really does all of those things. So that's a really growing market. I think as older core organic consumers start to age out, unfortunately, we have a really strong base of millennials that are growing up.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, you had a question? All right.
It's not so much a question as a statement. I'm a distributor, and I distribute from upstate New York all the way down to Carolinas and out to Ohio. And when I deal with my organic farmers who are buying, their certifiers are all over the place in terms of trying to get, what my product is made of. I don't make a product, I distribute it. And I don't know if your certifiers in your states have that same problem. It's not the same everywhere, and it's very frustrating.
Thank you.
I'm one of the organic markets, and right now we are suffering from a major shortage of organic milk. And what I am seeing is basically milk is just flowing back and forth between the markets, which is good for my producers. Okay, I won't deny that. But long term, my concern is we need to get new milk into the system. So my question is, how do we as a market, the administration or whomever, get new producers interested in going organic?
I'm dairy, so that is a fair assessment. I see it myself. My personal opinion is that over the years, there's always been a big influx of people transitioning to organic, and now it feels like that's slowing down, and now we're almost fighting between different markets and different co-ops and different buyers of our milk. It's just maybe just almost stealing one from another, but we're not bringing in new. I think part of the economic advantage, if we can show it's profitable, it's going to entice new people, and education as far as talking with the younger generation, like Dave bringing in his son. I'm young. Bringing in your son on your farm, even in dairy, dairy's a huge investment to be able to jump into, and to get a new farmer in, that's a challenge. I don't have all the answers.
We're actually, the Bureau of Markets is working with the Center for Dairy Excellence on that very issue. So, so I can pull you into that conversation. Mm-hmm.
I'm Peggy from TMAG, and we're supported by PDA to help farmers transition to organic. We have probably, I think, 19 farms that we're working with, and 10 of those are dairies. Excellent. Yeah, so they're transitioning right now, and we're working very closely with Organic Valley, who is really supporting those farmers through those transition years, as was mentioned. So there is a big commitment from the Department of Agriculture to see that happen, and we're fortunate enough to be working with dairy farmers who are moving forward with that commitment.
Kristen, I'd like to address a little something to that. I think the education part is the big part of it. Right now, in the last year or so, conventional milk has done reasonably well for the farmers. And so they say, why do I want to change? Because I'm making some money right now. But I'm almost 60 years old, and since I can remember, the milk's been bouncing on and off. And I think maybe the organic milk people should maybe talk to the farmers and say, hey, we don't fluctuate as much. And, you're going to have more years of having a better profit than what you do with conventional milk. And I think it comes down to dollars and cents. When the conventional dairy farmer doesn't know how to pay his bills, and then he's looking at as a last-ditch effort to change, and he's probably going to fail if he's already in the hole. But if you can, as a marketer, if you can go to those farms and show them where they can make more money over a 10-year period, where they're going to be more profitable over a 10-year period, I think you might stand a chance. Because I sit on the Farm Bureau board and I go to the annual meeting, and we'll spend going through probably a half a dozen pages of policies just for conventional milk market, and it's to show, they get the government involved so that they can make money. If you can show the dairy farmer that you don't necessarily have to be government subsidized to make money as a dairy farmer, I think you have a good sales pitch to the dairy farmer.
I'm also with TMAG. My name's Sue Ellen Johnson. I've been working with organic and grazing dairies for over 25 years now. And I think I would say we're excited by the farms that we're able to support through the PDA organic project. But I say of the farms I've been working with in general in my over 3 years now right here in this part of South Central Pennsylvania, 2/3 of those farms right now are choosing to go to a raw milk market without an organic certification. They make more money that way. So that's a reality. And it sort of addresses this, what is the competing thing? A number of the farms are selling direct, some are wholesaling. And so it's a really interesting space to listen to farmers' rationale economically, whether they're going to even an all-grass market that is, again, not worried about organic certification. And it's an ongoing conversation, and it's something at some level, I'm sure everyone here who's working with that sector understands that that's a little bit of the challenge. Certainly we are encouraging organic certification with everybody, but it's not always that choice. So it's something to be aware of, I think. And part of that is the competitiveness of the price. And that's a little bit of it, but there's just also the idea of not complying and getting involved with the government at all. And they still see certification as being this other factor. So just adding that in. But we are really thrilled with the farmers that are participating, and we think that the PADA program is helping a lot.
Yeah, I just want to add that, we partner with both TMAG and Rodale so that they're actually able to offer the transition services free of charge to producers and processors. So want to make sure folks are aware of that. There's a bunch of people with questions, so I'm going to try to go in the order of the hands that were up. We'll go with Mike and then Gordon.
I want to say a little bit more about the organic dairy, and it has to do with all segments of organic. But if you're really a successful business person, are you willing to share all your economics? How much you cutting? How much you cutting on your? You know what I'm saying. For people to want to transition, you've got to have some kind of transparent numbers that you can look at. And that's, to me, that's one of the big challenges. You want to go organic? Well, okay, you're going to get $40 a hundred for the milk. That doesn't tell anything of the story. You need a story with transparency to present numbers to someone, whether they're going to switch to growing organic soybeans or corn or whatever it is. But there is a need, and I'm not willing to share my numbers, So what I'm suggesting is something that doesn't heretofore really exist. But with these centers of excellence, there needs to be a way to get real numbers in to convince someone with numbers that, hey, this is a good move or not.
To address part of that, the mentor that I talked about, it's a lot easier on that one-on-one, and it's somebody you trust and know. And I agree, you're going to be hard-pressed to get a larger group. I know there's some economic groups out there, but to find somebody that you trust and that trusts you and that will be honest about the numbers. And I'm not saying lay everything out there, but be realistic and set up a plan. Yeah, you touched on a good point.
The discussion about dairy has, I think there's a good example in here for all the different commodities. So in dairy, there's been a few things mentioned about the dairy markets here that aren't quite complete. And by that, what I mean is over the past, a lot of your successful, and I agree with all the comments about financial incentives and management ability. If the guy's a poor manager before he transitions, he's going to be a poor manager after. So when you look at the dairy industry as a whole in the United States, the successful dairy farmers have grown, okay? Dairy is a commodity market. Commodity economics says size and scale wins. That's predominantly held out in agriculture. And so the larger operators tend to be the better managers. And so as you look at transitioning, a lot of the folks that Team Ag's working with now tend to be the smaller guys that are looking for an edge. I'm not saying they're not good managers, and you're putting them through the paces to try and help them become better managers. So as we think about transitioning in these different commodities, David made the comment about government involvement in milk marketing. And that goes way back to the 30s when there needed to be some better management in milk marketing. And yeah, trying to change regulation takes an act of God, and so it never changes, and it's a lot of opinions about it. As an organic dairy commodity grows, they've been shielded from a lot of those milk marketing regulations because it predominantly was fluid. Now it's growing into other products and so forth, and maybe they'll get sucked into that at some point in time. But I think understanding the commodity you're working with and the history of it, who the producers are, because organic and conventional agriculture in the United States today drives a lot of the infrastructure, the equipment, supplies, seed, a lot of those things. And as we talk about growing the organic market, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. I see a lot of food companies that are driving that organic marketing aspect for the foods they're producing. So like we say, there's a core producer out there that's always going to buy organic. But a lot of food companies, in order to try and gain an edge in their marketing and in the value addedness of their product, are trying to push that organic side of it so they can get a couple cents more for that box of cornflakes or, box of vegetables or whatever they're selling. So you have some of those aspects that are in there. And some of the things that I think about in organic, and I wasn't an organic producer, but I see those values and I see more producers talking about it, and especially some of the larger producers, and I don't care what commodity it is, they're starting to push a pencil around it a little bit. And if you're farming 10,000 acres in Illinois someplace, some of those guys are thinking about certifying 1,000 acres and seeing whether they can get close to their conventional production level with organic practices and be certified organic. I mean, that's, you're looking at a pretty good increase in your cash flow if you can do that. So those are some of the things I think about as the food production aspect industry, retailers push food processors to go more organic because that's the new niche today. And a lot of people in the food industry and even in the regulatory industry think that's the way everybody should be eating. As we see that push, that'll drive more production towards organic. Then we're going to have another issue of not only trying to get farms certified to get more supply. Well, then we got this whole regulatory is the right word, to certify all this, to make sure that it is certified. And so then we're going to have a huge need in that side of the business that right now we're focused on certifying, getting them transitioned, then keeping them certified and managing that aspect is going to keep growing too. So kind of covered a few different topics there, but I think as we look to transition like organic dairy, which my life has been, last 50 years has been up to my eyeballs in the dairy industry in this country, we're seeing a lot of smaller producers look at it, which is kind of their lifeline to keeping the family in dairy. But you're going to have more and more larger operations want to transition into this, and they'll figure out how to do it. And like any successful business, there's always the opportunity to grow. And, that's kind of the economic base of the United States is capitalism. And so, how do we manage some of that sort of thing? So just a couple of things that I dream about at night and figure out how we manage some of this stuff. And as these different commodities are thinking about transitioning, the successful growers are kind of looking at this a little bit. But like, the panel said, some of the larger, efficient, great managers that are still in conventional, they're making money at it. And right now, the dairy industry, the last 20 years, the dairy industry has seen more volatility than it ever saw in the 80 years of the industry before. And that's because we're in global markets. And organic is in global markets, as Dave mentions all the time. These imports coming in, how do we know it's actual real stuff and they're not, is the certification real or the paperwork real? And so we need to figure out ways to do that. But, and again, the other thing I think about is, as farmers, we're all brethren, and I'm looking at the farmer aspect of it, whether you're conventional or organic. And the last thing we need is the two of them going like this, trying to fight each other and, making life even harder in the small field of agriculture. So.
Thank you, Gordon. I'm going to try to keep an order of the questions here. There you go, sir.
Thank you very much. Just listening to some of the other people talk and listening to everyone talk in this room, it seems that years ago organic came in as a philosophy and a way of life is how it was started, and benefited being only involved for 5 years like we have been. It's a little bit different perspective that I have for certified organic than what maybe some of you in this room have, and to touch on some of your other comments, people who are coming into the industry now. I am very committed to regenerative agriculture. I'm very committed to growing healthy food without chemicals. But I view certification and certified organic as an approval that I need to market my products so that my consumers understand what they are. And if I have a consumer that doesn't need that, then I don't want to use it. And a lot of growers in the regenerative movement that I know, mainly in the cattle world, like Dave mentioned, do not have certification for their livestock, and that is because they don't require that. Their customers aren't requiring that of them. And I think as we encourage people to join organic and join the organic movement, we have to be very careful that we aren't setting them up. We had the comment that they have to know that that there's an economic advantage to it, and I think people need to be really careful before they get into certified organic and take on the expense, because I think they can really, I think they have to know what they're doing, and I think they have to know what their markets are, and I think they have to know that whoever is going to be buying their product, that they are requiring that. And, it's certified organic for the 5 years we've been doing has been good to us, and we want to continue, we want to continue with it. But we have to make sure that people understand what they're doing when they get into it, and those of you that are working with people to help them transition, if a farm's sinking, just changing over to certified organic isn't necessarily going to be the lifeline that they need, and we have to be sure that we don't sell people something and make it worse for them.
Thank you. Let's see. There was a question over here that I missed. Okay, Georgia. Got to get you in the dairy conversation.
So the question was about dairy, and I think part of it, of getting more producers to be involved, is no different than on the grocery store shelf. You know, you go into the grocery store, and how do you, uneducated people have no idea between organic, natural, pasture raised, this and that is a hard thing. So, and it's no different for some farmers. And it is easy to scoff at it and say, oh, it's just a label, right? It is the fact of, you have to explain to farmers who don't know what being certified organic is. It's not just a label. It is a way of life. It is a way of managing animals. And that is what leads those good managers to make more money within being certified organic. It's not just another label that any sort of milk sales cooperative company is slapping on there. And I think on top of it is educating the consumer, right? I am the target audience, millennial mom, 2 children, and I feed my kids organic food. But I'm also educated about it. I know that just because the label natural is slapped on a carton of eggs does not mean that it's any different than somebody who has a hen house where they are in cages, right? That's not a certification. That is just a label. And I think teaching farmers that long term makes a difference too.
Thank you. Kagan.
I guess this question is more directed at Grow Pittsburgh, but have you seen any advantages that come from being certified when there isn't necessarily the economic incentive for being there? We work with a lot of small farms and urban farms specifically. Like if you're working to solve food insecurity, it's hard to justify the cost of being certified when those numbers could go to kind of advancing the mission. So if you had any kind of side benefits from being certified.
Yeah, I think, so part of applying for the top grant, the Transition to Organic Partnership, was about doing education. So we created some resources and did a webinar to both, like I said earlier, it was about us sort of confirming that we were doing what we said we were doing, but also to be able to share and educate other urban farms who are similar to our position, be able to educate them and talk about the benefits of transitioning to organic for other producers. In the city of Pittsburgh, there's many other small farms that are going to farmers markets. Who Cooks For You is a larger farm, and they're certified organic, but I think as far as I know, they're the only ones going to any of our markets in the city who are certified organic. And so part of it was just about being able to share that it is possible for other small growers as well. And I think, as another benefit, our consumers they trust us, they shop at our markets, knowing that we are growing organically. And even still, when we got certified at our greenhouse, there was huge excitement around being certified organic. So I do think that even though there was trust and they are the same customer base, that there was true excitement around us being certified organic. Of course, then there was questions about whether we were going to be charging more. Like that was like immediate on Facebook when we announced certification. Like, does that mean you're going to be charging more? And for a nonprofit, our prices will continue to increase as our supplies do, to be cutting, to be breaking even as close as possible. But I think that those are the other benefits. Being able to do education, being able to have transparency for our small operations, and then also just to have that certification to guarantee. I think it may mean that we do get new customers. There might be people that only buy certified organic because Garden Dreams, the site where our greenhouse is, they were certified organic because they were selling to Whole Foods previously. So they had an organic certification. When their business lapsed, that certification went away, and so we picked that up 5 years after it lapsed.
Peggy had a question. Do you have something directly related?
Yep,
Okay,
yeah,
yep, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Diana. I'm the executive director of PCO, and we work directly on that top grant with Grow Pittsburgh. And that was one of the attractive things about that work was we could enable them to develop that program, and as an educational institution, they could then take that out into the community. But really important point with the direct-to-consumer small farms and operations that are transitioning that we're seeing in the top program is they're not going through the distribution and the retailer markups, right? So they can oftentimes, and Grow Pittsburgh is a great example, offer that produce at a really attractive price point, similar to what, or exactly what they were offering before. So it's not necessarily been cost prohibitive for operations of that size. But I want to say Rodale is a partner of ours too. We're obviously very blessed in the state of Pennsylvania to have all the support of the department and the programs that we have here. But I would not be doing my job if I didn't remind everyone that we know organic is growing at a national level. The research from the trade associations have taught us that the market is absolutely growing, and we don't have enough production at home here in the United States to meet that demand. So there is a national program called the Organic Transition Initiative, and part of that is market development. Another piece of it is the Organic Transition Program, or TOP. And so PCO is in charge of the entire Northeast region, and there are 5 other regions in the country working on the very same challenges that we're talking about here today. So we are very lucky to have this issue to solve, and a lot of good folks are working on all of these things. So I think what we're finding nationally is been echoed in the room here today. Those business practices, the market, showing the market need, and really developing those farms that are conventional at this point. I think we have transitioned a lot of the folks who were really interested with some of the incentives that have been out there, and now the hard work is really showing what's the market incentive, what's the transition look like, what's it going to cost me, and how can I get supported on the other end. So all really important programs. So.
Well said, thank you. I know there was a couple of questions up front.
Just a couple comments, partly something that you said, Gordon. It's interesting talking with the farmers when they first are coming to us considering transitioning. First of all, it seems like half of them or so have already been using organic practices and just haven't gotten through the certification process. It was something that they believed and were living, and decided that there was value in getting the certification. So it wasn't really a matter of just reprogramming themselves for another opportunity to make some money. It was more like where their hearts were and how they were living. What I'm also seeing is that most of those farmers are young, and they're in the process of purchasing the farm from their fathers or grandfathers. And they know that they've watched their parents struggle with the dairy, and they feel like they don't like the way things were operating. They care about their animal health. Most of them want to be 100% grass-based. A lot of it is being driven by the regenerative, environmental, caring for the animals. And they are really in it completely because that's what they would do anyway. And so some of them really are just in that early stage, but most of them have been just doing this anyway. It's very interesting to see. It's not at all what I expected, but that seems to be holding pretty consistently. Another thing, Mike, you brought up about looking at finances. And thankfully, part of the program, the grant that was written to PDA, was to provide financial analysis and market analysis. And I sit down That's a part of the thing that I do. I look at their finances. A lot of farmers really are at the very elementary place, even if they've been farming for years, in looking at numbers and looking at enterprise analysis and looking at inputs, and it's just a lot of basic hand-holding through looking at farm finances. But some are further along, and it's great to be able to work with Matt Hahn from Organic Valley. He's been sitting down with us with some of their farms and looking at financial analysis and the costs and the risks associated with it. So that is definitely a part of the process. And thankfully, the funding has been so good with PDA to provide very in-depth care to each of these farmers throughout their whole transition.
Yeah, Peggy, I would agree with you 100%. I'd also expand that, and I was going to make this in my comment in my first. So, Peggy, I agree with you. Forgot this was being recorded, so maybe I ought to be quiet and go home. But you know, you talked about the young farmers and these practices they're doing, they believe in. So, just as we're talking about transitioning more farms to organic, you'll find that all the conventional farms out there, those farmers, those young next generation guys, think they're just as holistic as the organic farmer, because all of them are really engaging in regenerative practices. I get a little frustrated with the regenerative term because farmers been doing this, every farmer's been doing this for years, you know, improving how they're managing crops, how they're managing cattle. Every piece of livestock in the United States goes through an animal care program. You know, conventional dairy started it, organic picked it up. Poultry and swine is vertically integrated. So some CEO at the desk signed a document, and all of a sudden every swine facility and every poultry facility is implementing animal care. Now we can debate what types of animal care are real animal care. But the enthusiasm that you stated there, you're finding on these farms, I find out on all the farms I visit. Everybody is engaged. They're trying to be the best stewards they have, and especially if they're multi-generational, those guys whose grandfathers started with the conservation movement when it started, 50, 60 years ago. Especially as I get further upstate, I'm a flatlander from eastern Lancaster County. When you get on these hills upstate, which I wouldn't even drive a tractor on, they've been practicing conservation, waterways and managing water off the hills for years. So I echo what you're saying, and especially in the plain sect, as we talked about, the millennials are driving. Is the next core group coming on driving organic? I'm kind of flabbergasted the number of Amish young couples and stuff that are really into organic now, and of course their agrarian culture, kind of helps connect that a little bit. So it's kind of interesting what you find out there. Yeah.
Part of my transition through that grant process, I had already mentioned Path to Organic. They actually tracked my organic matter. That was part of the grant. They wanted to track that through my 3-year transition and all the 18 farms that were part of that. So and that was back in 2009 or 2010. And I think that's a benefit that we're talking about the younger generation seeing. It's more benefit than just the economic, something you can put a price tag on, but the land and having better organic matter to hold moisture and not to have runoff and carbon insetting and all that. That even from then, and now it feels like it's growing and continuing to grow.
I want to take our conversation back a little bit. A couple of you mentioned the impact of education on the acceptance of organics in the market. Full transparency, I help to coordinate the Pennsylvania Farm to School Network, so education is very important to me. But I wanted to ask you guys how you see education impacting the future of organics from a grower perspective as well as from a market perspective.
Well, I'd say, is this on? Okay. I think it's really important, especially now on our farm, we did have direct no, I don't know what that was. No, it's okay. Because we had a CSA, we spent a lot of time educating our CSA with what to do with the vegetables, why we do this, why we do that, and I can't emphasize how important it is to educate. And as farmers, to other farmers who have any kind of interest, like young dairy farmers or something, you know, with the shortage of milk, organic milk available, and pasture raised, just talking whenever you can, I think it's important. I think it means a lot, especially farmer to farmer. And farmer to consumer, yeah.
that one-on-one is so
Farmer to
important.
consumer, too.
Well, I don't necessarily think it has to just do with organic, just farming in general. You know, like I said before, I'm president of Farm Bureau in Dauphin County. I'm probably here on this panel because of that. We hosted a outing for the politicians, and I sort of insisted that our secretary came, Russell Redding, to one, and about 2 years ago, and Farm Bureau had put that on, and it was a tour of my farm, and Rodell does a lot of that every year. And I think Kristen was out at my place one time for a Penn State meeting that we had there. All those types of meetings where you get people that are not used to the farming and they see where their food comes from, and then they start understanding, okay, if you buy organic products, you're not going to get synthetic chemicals in it. You're going to get, if there's any chemicals in it, which there's chemicals in everything, it's going to be natural chemicals. Then that starts boosting the level of desire for the organic products. And I think it's just, we got to basically educate people that the food doesn't come from the grocery store. It comes from a farm and what that consists of. And I know when we had legislative day and we got politicians out, I had Patty Kim come, and she was a representative at that time. And her first response was, what do I care about a farm? I don't have one farmer in my district. Well, I said to her, I said, you eat, don't you? And she came out, and probably out of the politicians that were there that day, she probably had the most benefit out of it. And so when you educate people like that, even if it's in the inner cities, there is a lot of good that comes out of it, and I think that it's going to transpire into more organic production, more organic sales.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like this conversation is really making me think that we should probably be designing a workshop around what it means for us to have transitioned to certified organic, what it means even to be shopping, you know, thinking about the East End Food Co-op versus Giant Eagle. We often are teaching growing workshops, but maybe also we just need to be doing like understanding a label at the grocery store. I think that could be an interesting workshop to do, because we're in the city. We have so many, you know, people who live in so many different neighborhoods. We serve many different neighborhoods through community gardens, school gardens, and our farm sites. So I think maybe we need to be doing a workshop on understanding labels and the questions to ask, because I think that is an important thing is if you're buying direct from a farmer, that's one thing, but when you're in the grocery store and looking at, you know, cereal boxes or butter, whatever it is, like there's so many words that some have true meaning and some are just marketing. So
Thank you. I have something to add to this conversation, but we're going to have one more question or comment from Georgia, and then I'll build on this conversation, and then we'll soon transition into the small groups where we can continue discussing these important topics.
As we talk about education, I think we need to recognize also what the certifiers have done, such as PCO, OFA, NOFA New York. You know, being with Organic Valley now almost 10 years, the changes that they have made to educate producers as they come on and the support they have. So as farmers, once they take that step, that is a huge difference versus, I would say, 5 years ago even. The programs that have been developed through the NOP that you guys have helped with, and then individuals that work within the certifying agencies, a lot of them actually have farmers who are mentors, which is a huge difference and can help with young farmers. And I encourage any of you that speak to farmers to make sure to put that little bug in their ear, because it's been such a change that most farmers don't even know those programs exist.
All right, thank you all. We're just going to bring the PowerPoint back up here quickly. Oh, here we go. Okay, back it up. Yeah, I was going to save this for the end of the program, but I think it's good to bring it up now and also get it on the recording. So I did want to make folks aware that we are developing the PA Preferred Organic label, and we have pins here with this new label. Basically, it's an opportunity for producers and processors to have a label that differentiates them both as Pennsylvania grown, raised, and certified organic by USDA. If you're not familiar, the PA Preferred program is Pennsylvania's statewide branding program that promotes locally grown and processed food and other agricultural products. To participate in that program, 75% of ingredients must be grown or produced in Pennsylvania, and at least part of the product must be processed in Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania Preferred, PA Preferred Organic is a program that will be rolling out this year, and producers and processors must qualify for the PA Preferred program and be USDA certified organic to use the logo. It'll be a great way to differentiate products in the marketplace that are both local to Pennsylvania and certified organic. And PDA is going to be working on developing this as a marketing campaign to increase consumers' awareness of what organic means. And so I want to make sure our efforts are tied in with PA Preferred Organic, because there is a lot of education needed out there. Consumers are confused by all the labels, and we want to try to increase that education and understanding of what all is behind certified organic. As you see on many products, you see both certified organic and then also GMO-free and other labels on there that are all included in organic, but because consumers don't understand what all goes into organic, companies feel the need to add on the additional labels. So more to come on that. This has been a really rich and diverse conversation, and I want to keep things moving along with these great conversations. So now we're going to divide into 3 different groups. One is going to be farmer to farmer and transition assistance, and we're going to have that group in the very back. Megan and Kagan, can you raise your hands? They will be the facilitators of that group. Next, we're going to have demystifying and navigating certification and regulatory issues, so that'll include the strengthening organic enforcement. And our facilitators are Diana and Chris and Bob, if you can raise your hands. They are going to be in the back there. And then the third group, business planning and marketing, we have Kara and Peggy, if you can raise your hands. Let's use the chairs from this table in the front and the chairs at the table in the back for that group. They're going to be holding up signs so you can find what group you want to start out in, and we're going to provide 2 opportunities for you to rotate to another group. So one other favor I have to ask, sorry I didn't think of this ahead of time, is if either the facilitators or someone in your group could just take down some highlights. Since I can't be in all three groups, it'd be great just for me to know what was discussed in that group. Doesn't have to be anything detailed at all, just, some highlights from the groups. And you can just give that to me afterwards. I'll just, that'll just be for internal purposes. Also, just a reminder, before you leave today, to please fill out the evaluation form and place it on the registration table. Before we move into the groups, do the panelists have any last comments that they want to offer? That was great. You were all really, yes, thank you. Round of applause. You were also eloquent and efficient with your answering of questions, that it gave us a lot of time for questions and discussion. So this has been really great. All right, well, let's go ahead and transition into those three different groups.
You have no special groups.